Well, if you were wondering what the final weapon selection would look like for Darktide, you have come to the right place. Iconic lasgun patterns, meltaguns, chain axes, and more. Things are shaping up to be real spicy when we dive into the hive city of Tertium on November 30th. During the closed beta last weekend, a handful of people had bugged equipment selection and loadouts that displayed a bunch of info that probably was not intended to be disclosed during the beta. This ranged from cosmetics for every character to melee weapons and guns we can expect when the pre-order beta goes live on November 17th. Now, this was already shared on the official Darktide Discord and on the subreddit last weekend. It's been a constant source of discussion since then, but even so, it kind of flew under the radar a bit. I think a lot of y'all probably have not seen this yet, and I'd argue it's really important to cover because it's one of the best methods we have to measure how much content will be in at launch and how much variety will be on offer. So big thank you to Mr. Melanzo for compiling this list, or Mr. Melanzo, I'm not sure, apologies my dude. A link to his Reddit post will be in the pinned comment and description below, but a couple caveats before we begin. Number one, I am not under NDA at the moment. I do not know anything more about Darktide than what has been shared publicly thus far. If I had access to the game or knew what was coming, I would not be talking about this because I'd be breaking my NDA. Again, this leak, if you want to call it that, has already been plastered all over Reddit and on the official Darktide Discord, so it is public information. Number two, just because an icon exists doesn't necessarily mean the weapon it represents will be ready for launch. It could be art created early in preparation for an update later, it could get cut because they can't make it work in time, blah 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 blah. There are a variety of reasons a weapon might show up on this list and not be ready for launch day. Point being, there is no reason for you to get up in arms and freak out or lambaste the devs for false advertising. They haven't released this list themselves. If a handful of these weapons don't show up right away on launch day, it's not something to get mad about. Fatshark themselves have stated there will be more than 70 weapons on day one, and while we aren't 100% confirmed on how much creative accounting falls into that equation, it almost certainly does include marks and variations. And the starting arsenal, if everything displayed here is accurate and in at launch, is quite robust and impressive in my opinion. And there's a lot of evidence that what we're looking at here is quite close to what we will see. Naturally, because we know what was in the beta and what's been shown in the trailers thus far matches up almost perfectly with the leaks here, and obviously this data mine came from the game files themselves, and there are weapons that haven't been shown in gameplay or trailers yet that appeared in marketing materials that also showed up on this list, like the Acatran pattern lasgun pictured right here. By that same token, there is potential for more as well. There's been a hotshot las shown in concept art for Veteran that does not appear in this list, so it may or may not be in the final game, and we know that certain weapon combinations like pistol and sword will also be in the final game that did not appear alongside all these insignia. So again, not an utterly comprehensive picture, but as close as we are going to get, and it should give you a really good idea if this is a game that you want to purchase or not. Okay, so let's do a quick run through everything, then we'll dive back in for a bit more detail on individual weapons. Starting from left to right, we have what looks like some type of long las sniper variant, the Acatran pattern bullpup lasgun of the Elysian drop troopers, the Lucius pattern lasgun of the Death Corps of Krieg, the Cantrell pattern lasgun of Cadia, a las pistol, a Godwin Diaz pattern bolt gun, a flamer, a meltagun, plasma gun, the shotgun, 3 variants of autogun, which we'll go further in depth on in a minute here, an Ogryn slab shield, 2 shovels, one for Ogryn, one for use by regular humans, the Psyker staff, either a heavy stubber or autocannon. There's some debate about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. There's been some discussion over that. And then Grenadier Gauntlet, Ripper Gun, Thumper Shotgun Grenade Launcher, the Stub Pistol Revolver, a bunch of rapiers, swords, and knives, 2 variants of Chain Axe, a selection of Shock Mauls, Power Mauls, and Bullgren Maces, 2 combat axes, a Power Sword, 3 types of Force Swords, a Thunder Hammer, a Chain Sword, and an Eviscerator. So all told, that's about 43 weapons on this list, not counting marks or combinations, which are not displayed here, and that will pretty easily push that threshold over the 70 the devs stated would be in the game. Now, whether you want to count marks or not, animation differences or not, variations on weapons, that can be eternally up for debate, but I will say I'm pretty impressed with the amount of ranged options we have here, and they're going to be available straight from the word go. Almost all of the Imperium's most iconic guns are on offer here. Lasguns, plasma, melta, bolters, auto guns, ripper guns, heavy machine guns, grenadier gauntlets. There's a lot of iconic stuff on display, and that's before we even get into the spicy melee stuff, like two-handed chain axes for shock and awe, and the legendary two-handed chainsword known as the Eviscerator. So let's dive into the ranged weapons first, because there's a lot on offer here that had not previously been confirmed, but looks like it will be ready for final launch. The Sure Shot insignia seems to be representing a long las type of rifle, and even though there's no scope displayed there, from what the devs have been hinting at, there will be at least some weapon customization when it comes to attachments, like bayonets or flashlights. We saw the cantrell pattern in the beta, had that gothic arch. It's kind of like a little zoom in scope, but doesn't give you a lot of amplification. That might be something you can strip off it, not entirely sure yet, but whether 4x scopes are added to the game or not, whether you'll be able to customize the scopes or not, it does have a long barrel, which is typically a sign of increased range and accuracy and probably additional power as well. Some kind of ACOG scope equivalent that gives a noticeable zoom effect, allowing for real sniping, would be a big departure for the Tide series. I don't believe we've ever had a true sniper in any of the Tide games, but that could be a hell of a lot of fun and synergize super well with Sharpshooter's kit. Would love to see it. Next we have the Trenchborn, which is clearly the Lucius pattern lasgun of the Death Korps of Krieg. This is the signature weapon of Krieg, operating at a higher level of power than your standard lasgun, but draining ammo and overheating much quicker, which is why they often have that distinctive ring of heat sinks around the barrel. Iconic weapon for an iconic regiment. It looks like we may be able to go full regalia with the shovel and Lucius pattern, so expect Krieg cosmetics to follow soon after if they won't be ready to go right away. Without question, one of the coolest uniforms in the entirety of the Imperium, the gas mask, the World War I aesthetic. They look sick. And then we have the Skyborn, the Akatran pattern of Elysian aerial assault troopers, better suited for hip firing and control when on the move. This bullpup design keeps it to a kind of short carbine length that won't punch nearly as hard as Lucius pattern, but should allow for better accuracy when hip firing without aiming down sights. But this second row, man, this second row is juicy, because we've got Meltas, we've got bolters, and we've got plasma guns. The Melta has me super excited, because I wasn't actually expecting it on launch day, and it has the opportunity to carve out an incredibly unique niche, a superheated vaporizer that can just delete elite armored enemies from existence. Very short range, but if I see a mauler, if I see a crusher, that poor sod is gone. He is going to get deleted from existence, because Meltaguns are designed to kill vehicles. They aren't really typically used in an anti-personnel manner, but they certainly have the capability of destroying anything heavily armored, and hell, even if it's a poxwalker, it will disappear. Problem is, you don't want to shoot at hordes typically, because it's just going to be a waste of ammo, and I would imagine this thing will be severely limited on that front. Maybe not the best for horde clear either, because it's more of a single target shot, but yeah, Meltaguns are crazy. Next up, we have the Godwin's Herald. Looks like a human-sized bolter, and I believe this is referencing the Godwin Diaz pattern of the Sisters of Battle. But no matter which bolter pattern it is, a bolt gun is a bolt gun, and this thing will be effective versus all targets, booming loud and proud as it cuts down enemies in a hail of gunfire. Iconic 40k weapon, but the major question is, of course, will Fat Shark do it justice in terms of damage, visuals, and auditory feedback? Because this thing needs to be loud, and it needs to explode things when it makes contact. Previous 40k games have kind of struggled to do the bolter justice. We shall see if it's done justice here. Then the plasma gun fills a similar type of role, good versus all targets, but limited because it can overheat extremely easily. It can melt through armor, devastate assault squads, and likely overcharge with a secondary attack for a more explosive burst that will immediately turn it into overheated territory. The Cantrell pattern lasgun of Cadia is there as well, just to further drive home the point that these leaks are legit. And then we come to Firstborn and Desertborn, which are very interesting. Now, I think Desertborn is a reference to a unique pattern of autogun tied to the Talaran Desert Raiders, and Firstborn likely references the Vostroyan Firstborn with a weapon that looks like a modified Kalashnikov, some kind of AK variant, go figure. Vostroyans are basically Russian Cossacks and have always had that Russian aesthetic, but I'm not aware of any specific unique pattern of autoguns for either regiment, so it wouldn't surprise me if they exist, or if Fat Shark might have gone in with Games Workshop hand in hand and said, hey, let's create some slight variations for the purposes for Darktide and just make some new autogun patterns. But either way, the Firstborn looks a lot like an AK-74, even has the banana mag, And the Desertborn looks to have a distinctive look compared to the Agrippina pattern we had in the beta as well. So 3 distinctive patterns: Firstborn, Desertborn, and then the Agrippina that was in the beta. And those should be your auto guns. Now, on the next page, you're probably licking your lips if you're a melee enjoyer, because there's a lot of cool stuff here. Power Sword we knew about, really looking forward to that. Two-handed Chain Axe we did not know about. Both Hack and Tear and Blood Rush are Chain Axe variants, and I believe one is single-handed, which we got a glimpse of in the Zealot trailer, so we knew that was coming. The other is most likely a Shock variant. If you look at the picture, use like a great weapon two-handed. As discussed previously, chain weapons may need a bit of work before launch, but Fat Shark Hedge has already come out and assuaged some of those fears in the official Discord and stated that they've been buffed since the beta, so that's good to hear at least. In the top right, you can see the last pistol, which can be paired with certain swords, similar to Salt Pyre's Rapier and Sidearm combo in Vermintide, and I imagine some of the swords at the bottom may indeed be power weapons. Not entirely sure, but there are power sword rapiers, sabers, falchions, and cutlass equivalents in 40k that Rough Riders and certain sergeants and veterans have access to, but really you can plop an energy field on just about any killing tool. It'll be up to Fat Shark which ones get in and which ones do not. They could probably put a force field on a broom and make it a power weapon of some kind, so we don't know how they're going to handle it. Some of those may be, some of them may not be. We shall see. Big one for me on this page, though, is the Rip and Roar, which appears to be an Eviscerator, an obscenely large Zweihander chain weapon used by the Sisters Repentia, Sisters of Battle, and certain Zealots of the Imperium. Bulky, unwieldy, difficult to use, but capable of chopping a Scab Gunner in Carapace armor cleanly in two. This thing is going to be sexy to use. I cannot wait. And it will probably be exclusive to the Zealot. Rest of it, for the most part, we knew about. More confirmation of Flamers to burn heretics to cinder. There will be only one variation. I don't recognize that pattern, but it's kind of the quintessential Flamethrower in 40k. So if you know what pattern that is, please do let me know. It's going to turn heretics into cinder, ash, and dust, no problem. Possibly a two-handed force sword for Psyker, but those might just be variants of the same weapon in the bottom right. Either way, let's move on. I did show the Ogryn weapons yesterday, so not going to spend too much time here. But there has been some discussion about the big guns at the top left and what that might represent. I personally thought it was a heavy stubber. Some other people thought it was an autocannon. I'm frankly not sure. I'm not sure it will matter much either way. Even though there is a clear distinction between the weapons in 40k lore, between a heavy stubber and an autocannon, in that an autocannon has massive rounds meant to punch through vehicles, and a heavy stubber is more like a large anti-infantry LMG. For the purposes of Darktide, it's going to function similarly no matter which one it is. Reaper autocannons are already in the game for enemy Reaper Ogryns, and they function just like a big machine gun. So whether it's heavy stubber or autocannon, it's going to mow down hordes and suppress like crazy, dealing big damage but with limited accuracy. We may end up seeing something like a autocannon if it's not in the game on day one. I've seen some cool suggestions for a gunlegger class in the future for Ogryn that can make use of heavy flamers, plasma cannons, Reaper autocannons, that sort of thing. Whatever big gun you can think of that Arnold would wield in a Predator movie, that is what the Ogryn would get with a gunlegger class. I think that'd be logical as one of the first subclasses we get for Ogryn, so we can start bringing out the big guns. But yeah, on top of that, Grenadier Gauntlet, Kickback Thumper. Talked about that stuff yesterday, although a few of you rightly pointed out the Ogryn Thumper is based on the M79 Thumper used in Vietnam and not the pump action China Lake. Thank you for that. And overall, looking like a pretty beefy arsenal here, boys and girls. I don't have many complaints. A lot of different playstyles, a lot of iconic 40k weaponry. Now I just need to wait and see if they stick a landing and nail the implementation. Psyker might need some more love in here. Again, I'm not sure how comprehensive this list is. There may be additional staffs that are on the way. It would be weird to only have a conflag staff equivalent for Psyker in the final game on launch, when Sienna already has a bunch of staffs that they could kind of just copy paste over at the bare minimum. Obviously, I'd like to see more than that for Psyker as well. But Force Axes, a lot of different weapons they could dive into that have not been explored yet. Perhaps Psyker's arsenal will be more fleshed out than it appears at the moment. I would certainly like it to be. Obviously, guns are not the be-all and end-all. Melee weapons are not the be-all and end-all of how Darktide will function and play. But if the beta is any indication, I'd say they are going to nail the landing for the vast majority of what we see here. Only time will tell, though. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you all think of the leaks and what you're most excited to try out yourself, and I'll see you all in the next one. Indie Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.